TV umpire to director, we have a review. Can you rock and roll it for me, please?
Welcome back to another episode of Rock and Roll It. We've had some analytics come through on this podcast, and we've discovered that listeners of this podcast who leave positive feedback are 50% more likely to get a promotion at work, 60% more likely to have success in their relationships, and 80% more likely to have their comments published in Cricinfo's ball by ball commentary, which is what really matters in life. So make sure
Will
that
the
when you're
cats
listening,
will the cats love them?
that there's a 90% chance of that. So make sure you leave positive feedback wherever you're listening to this podcast. Give us a thumbs up, give us a like. And today I've got back our original cast. Karthik Krishnaswamy is covering the India West Indies series and he's currently in Ahmedabad in a hotel. So we apologize for the slight issues with lighting in his video. And Sid Monga has very selflessly come back from holiday early to join this podcast. Both Sid and KK could have had a day off today since the Ahmedabad test finished early. But they have selflessly decided to join this podcast because today we're going to talk about perhaps one of India's most selfless captains, Rohit Sharma. He's This is now officially the end of Rohit Sharma's tenure as an international captain. He's been replaced as ODI captain by Shubman Gill. He has, of course, already retired from Test and T20 international. So this is the end for him as India captain. Let me ask first, Sid, was this the right time for the Indian selectors to move on from Rohit as ODI captain?
I mean, if they didn't want to take on a move, a brave or a courageous call, they could have carried on because Rohit Sharma had a great Champions Trophy both as a captain and as a batter, as his newest role as a batter who's an impact player in the first power play. And if he can carry on, he carries on. But what he does now is uh, the real big impact in the first power play. So if if the selectors wanted to be like some of the selectors in the past, they could have easily continued with the status quo. But I feel this is the right move because should like the World Cup is in 2027, should Rohit Sharma happen to lose form, then you're not stuck with him just because he's the captain. You have a captain who has had a lot of, not a lot, but enough experience going into the World Cup, who's younger, who's in the form of his life. So, and who's like Virat Kohli on his way to becoming an all-time ODI great. It's the format that comes easiest to him and Virat Kohli. It's they can just play this form. Shubman Gill and Virat Kohli can play this format on autopilot. So it's the right move. The guy is ready, the guy is in his prime. I- It's uh, it's I don't know if it is a compliment anymore because we have moved on from that era where Australia used to be the benchmark. It is, but this is one of the kind of unsentimental, ruthless Australian cricket decisions where they won't wait for the incumbent to start failing. If they were 35 plus and there was a new person ready, they would kind of start pushing in for the younger person so that they are ready before the next big event. Uh, you pick out quite a few of these Australian transitions that really didn't happen because it had become untenable to play the incumbents, but because the new players were ready. So this is that kind of decision that is also reflective of the riches in Indian cricket, the amount of talent that is there in coming through in Indian cricket, where even if somebody is to fail, there are many more youngsters. They're still unable to place to accommodate Yashasvi Jaiswal in the ODI team, for example. So this is a very practical, but a very un-Indian and ruthless kind of selection and unsentimental.
Yeah. And I think on top of that, it's kind of been forced on them also because who's playing ODIs anymore, right? So
Yeah.
between now and 2027 World Cup in 2 years, in those 2 years, uh, maybe in the past, if you had a 2 year window before uh, uh, from now to the World Cup, you might say, okay, let's give Rohit Sharma a little more time. let's see, okay, how whether he's still batting the same way, whether he's still having the same impact. And then maybe like even like a year before the World Cup, you would still feel like, okay, we're still going to play at least like 15, 20 ODIs this year. We can kind of manage. That's not going to happen now. Uh, as far as we can see right now, unless they kind of add more matches after the T20 World Cup ends, and then they sit down and plan, okay, let's tour here, let's get 3 matches here, 2 matches there. Unless that happens, they're not playing a lot. So in that situation, you don't want to be caught with very little time to go, very few matches to go. You've not even tried anybody else. And then you have to leave out your captain, bring in a new captain, bring in a new opener. And then you're kind of hoping. And it's such a pivotal position, right? Top of the order, both Rohit and Kohli, top, opener and number three. So given all that, like this is this is the only thing they could have. It's a very pragmatic decision, like Monga said, and they've also recognized that okay, they're not playing the other two formats. Where are they going to get their match practice? They do have all these concerns, but they have recognized that these are all-time greats, and like there's no reason to not play them.
Hmm.
So all round, I think it's the decision that made most sense. The only thing is like it piles on a little more responsibility and pressure onto Shubman Gill. Pressure more in the sense of like it's going to be very hard for him to take any breaks. So that's one thing they'll
Hmm.
have to manage, and maybe they'll figure out a way to do that after the T20 World Cup. Maybe not play so many T20 games.
Yeah, I'm sure what they also consider that if they had kept Rohit as captain, it would have meant having three different Indian captains now because you already have
Hmm.
Surya as the T20 captain, Gill as the Test captain. That might have been a little bit too much of spreading the leadership around. It's easier. Usually, teams will have at least one captain captaining in two formats. Now, I think it's become pretty common to have split captaincy, but not very often do you have three separate captains across formats, especially when one of those formats, ODIs, is not being played that regularly. And of course, we should mention that Rohit will be 40 by the time the next World Cup comes around. So his place in the team is at the moment, I think, very much justified, but you can't predict whether he would be still in form or still fit come the next World Cup when he'll be 40. So, yeah, I think it's a very practical decision that they've made. And I think it's fair that you give Rohit and Kohli both a spot in the team because they're both in form in this format. So why move on from them when you haven't had any evidence that they're slowing down? So I think we all kind of agree that this was a pragmatic choice. But now let's discuss Rohit's tenure as firstly, we'll discuss his tenure as a white ball captain because the stats on him are actually pretty remarkable. He has in ODIs a win-less record as captain of 3.5, which I think, as KK has mentioned in a piece he wrote on Cricinfo, is actually the second best for any ODI captain with more than 50 games. Is that right, KK?
Even if you make it 20 games, it's still the second best. So yeah,
Right. So it's between
yeah,
Clive Lloyd's
between
West
Clive
Indies
Lloyd's
team.
West Indies and Ricky Ponting's Australia.
Yeah, and I was actually looking
Yeah.
at his T20I win-loss record, and that is also above 4. So that's also really high. In fact, that is also second behind only Asghar Afghan among captains who've captained more than 50 games. And obviously, Asghar Afghan captained Afghanistan at a time when they were playing slightly lesser opposition. So
Hmm.
Rohit's record as captain in both ODIs and T20Is is quite outstanding, especially if you look at him compared to even the previous captains. Kohli in ODIs had almost 2.5 as a win-loss record and 1.875 in T20Is. And Dhoni, who was, of course, before Kohli, had a win-less record of just under 1.5 in ODIs and just under 1.5 in T20 international. So there's, of course, been both Dhoni and Kohli captain for longer periods and arguably oversaw more transitional periods. But there's also been just a general progress of India's white ball cricket. But Rohit's captaincy has marked an era, Karthik, hasn't it, of Indian dominance across both ODIs and T20 internationals. He's won three of the five major trophies he's captain in, if you include Asia Cups.
Hmm.
So where do you rank, or how do you see Rohit's overall tenure as a white ball captain?
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to get into rankings here, but I'll just say, like you mentioned, it reflects the progress of Indian white ball, which So you have to kind of take Kohli's win-loss records, with that in mind, that India didn't have teams that covered all these bases so comprehensively as they have done under Rohit. So therefore, they did lose more matches, and also they played. I mean, Rohit was lucky also in the sense that like the two big one-day tournaments India played in his tenure were both the 2023 World Cup, 2025 Champions Trophy were both in Asia. Uh, Whereas, Dhoni's World Cups, yeah, 2011 he won in India. 2015 was in Australia, New Zealand, where again they played really well and only lost one game. Uh, Kohli's India had a really good World Cup as well, and again, almost unbeaten. They lost to England, and then they lost that semi-final to New Zealand. So, but yeah, they played in conditions which weren't quite like home for Indian one-day teams of that period. Uh, and Rohit has been lucky in that regard, but some of that progress got accelerated. The progress we're talking about as a white ball team, some of that got accelerated under Rohit, especially the style of play that he himself embraced. Uh, Before, so for the longest time and very successfully, he was already, among the great ODI openers, like the all-time great ODI openers, you could argue, already before he became captain, before he changed his style of play. And he had been very successful with an earlier style where he would like start, risk free. He would kind of play himself in and make massive scores. He went completely 360 degrees away from that, and he did that because I think the personnel around him needed someone to play like that, and he took the challenge upon himself to do it, and he did it really successfully. Because yesterday I was looking at the numbers of captains in ODIs, their batting records, and of all of them with I think at least 2000 ODI runs, he has a 50 plus average, but also his strike rate is the highest of all captains to have scored 2000 ODI runs. And I think AB de Villiers is second. So Kohli is sorry, Rohit is like something above 115. Which is quite remarkable. AB de Villiers 110 or something like that. Kohli is third at 98. So, which tells you that, the kind of impact he made in that new role and how that new role enabled, say, a new guy in Shubman Gill to come in, bat in his way without that extra pressure of, okay, the quick scoring is coming from the other end. I can play my way if there's a ball to be hit, I'll hit it, but I'm not going to go chasing after anything. And I have the means to be able to play myself in and play long and really, impose my strengths upon this India innings. Similarly, Kohli was able to bat his way. And then, of course, like I also think like Rohit's tenure coincided with India finally having like a number 4, 5 after many years of trying many different people in those roles. It all kind of clicked. It had begun to click towards the end of Kohli's tenure itself, I would think. But yeah, under Rohit, it almost the team picked itself, and it's a luxury for uh, captains to have that your top 6, 7 they kind of pick themselves. There were three all-rounders by the end of his tenure, like in Hardik, Jadeja, and Akshar, who played slightly different roles. And again, because they were playing in Asia, they were able to play all three of them. Because they were playing in Asia, they were able to bring in a fourth spinner in Varun Chakravarti in the Champions Trophy. They had one world-class wrist spinner already in Kuldeep Yadav. They of course had Jasprit Bumrah. So all these people were already like near or at their peaks, and that really helped Rohit uh, achieve the results that he did, while also like contributing to that evolution of the team in the way that he specifically batted.
I think
Just a small thing to add is that while yeah he did get a number 4 and number 5 Shreyas Iyer and KL Rahul at their best, he also contributed to them doing that job.
Hmm.
There was such role clarity. There was he knew what he wanted from them. He gave them ideal conditions. 2023 World Cup, ODI World Cup, they waited till the last moment to accommodate. I mean, uh, at any other time, perhaps the teams would have said, okay, these guys are injured, we are not going to risk them. But they gave them every possible opportunity to get ready for the ODI World Cup. Uh, that was one thing. The other thing, tactically, India was a solid team before Rohit took over, but tactically, I think he gave them an edge. He took them to the next level with what Karthik spoke about, the way India approached their innings building process, the way the focus was now not on two or three guys scoring 150s or 130s. It was more about scoring 80s, 90s at a healthier strike rate and at a more imposing strike rate. Bowling strategy also kind of okay, yeah. There he was helped in the sense that Jadeja and Akshar could be all rounders, which they might not be in certain other conditions. His two or three big tournaments have been either the West Indies or India and UAE. So they were helped by the all rounders, but it was not all just falling in place for him. He kind of actively worked towards it, and he was not chopping and changing the 4, 5, 6 like it used to happen earlier. A perfect example is Ambati Rayudu, who
Hmm.
kind of had a very good year leading to the 2019 World Cup, but then he was left out, and
Because he was only two-dimensional.
but we eventually had Dinesh Karthik and Rishabh Pant playing their first matches in the tournament in a World Cup semi-final. Okay, there was a bit of misfortune with injuries, but
Yeah.
so I mean, those kind of things were not happening under Rohit Sharma, where you have built a player for a year or two leading into a tournament. So and they went into that
Hmm.
tournament. But a good point about conditions, because you saw what happened in the 2022 World Cup in Australia. India did not. It was quicker pitches, seaming pitches. India were not that big a force in that T20 World Cup as they were in the 2024 one.
Yeah, but I think in that 2022 T20 World Cup, it also just coincided with some lack of form for Rohit. And so he couldn't quite show the style of cricket that he had been talking up and been wanting to play. I think I really became a believer in Rohit's strategy of batting, particularly during that 2023 ODI World Cup, because
Yeah,
in the 2019 ODI World Cup, of course, he had a fantastic World Cup, 5 centuries and a strike rate of 98, which is also
yeah,
more than good enough. But he decided that no, that's not good enough. I have to bat even faster if I'm to really build into the team this idea that we need to go even harder than we've been going before. And there was, I think it was India's second match against Afghanistan where they were chasing 273 middling total on what we later learned was an absolute flat track in Delhi. But at that stage of the tournament, we probably didn't know how flat it was, but it would have been completely justified had Rohit said, let me score 100 of 100 here and easily get this total. But he smacked, I think, 130 of 80 or something, strike
yeah,
rate of more than 150. The next game against Pakistan, again, India were chasing a low total, sub 200. But again, he goes out there and smashes 80 or 50 or something, plays a really quick knock. And at that stage,
hmm,
you saw, okay, Rohit is now prioritizing strike rate over hundreds. He only got 100 in that 2023 ODI World Cup, but arguably more of an impact even than the 2019 World Cup, where of course he also had a huge impact. But in 2023, he was just making sure that there was absolutely no chance India were losing those games where he would get a start. And then, of course, in the semi-final, it contrasted nicely to the 2019 semi-final where India, of course, very different conditions. India lost early wickets, but they just never got going against New
uh,
Zealand. Yeah.
a very good contrast is the 2016 T20 World Cup semi-final at the same venue, where India
Yeah.
Yeah.
scored 192 and were reasonably
Yeah.
happy with 192. Whereas here they went not 305, but 370 or something.
It was 397, yeah, which you
Yeah.
would
Yeah,
not
Yeah. Which
even the
which New
2000.
Zealand almost threatened to chase down, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 Same
And
venue, same due, same difficult to defend ground. So India this
Yeah.
time gave themselves a total they could defend.
yeah, and even the Virat Kohli ODI side, while it was very good, would you have expected them to score 397 in a World Cup semi-final? Probably not. Which is where
Which is
Rohit, I
what,
think,
yeah, which is where I was about to raise a curious point. I mean, I find it very curious that why does it take Rohit Sharma to be a captain to bring about this change. He was part of
I,
part of the
I
leadership
just,
group even before that.
I
Why?
think
I
this is
don't know
where,
how things work. I don't know how things
yeah,
work, whether it's the coach also that comes into the play, whether it's the selectors also who come into the picture. I mean, everybody knew that this is what is lacking in the Indian team, going from a very good side to a great side. So I just could never figure out why it took him to become captain for him to kind of.
I think, yeah, I think this is where like we have to bring in Rahul Dravid as well. Uh,
Hmm,
I think he probably insisted on this as well, and I guess Rohit was on board, and it went from there. But I think my feeling is under previous coaches, this wasn't emphasized so much,
hmm.
and
Possible.
also, yeah,
And Rohit was of the view, this I know because I've heard it. This I know that he was of the view that I cannot ask others to do it. I have
hmm,
to do it because
hmm,
this
hmm.
this inherently involves taking higher risks, inherently involves risking your average, your stats. So I have
Yeah,
to show it. I cannot ask,
and
if I don't do it, I can't ask others to do it.
And I
yeah,
think
and
it
at a
may.
and sorry, at a fundamental level, it also required those teams to try that other way and fail, right?
Hmm.
Because I mean, they do believe that okay, the way we are playing is going to win us matches. They're playing that way because they believe they're going to win, right? So, and a little bit because of personnel as well, because especially 2019 World Cup, that classic example is that chase against England, where Rohit and Kohli, you could see they were batting with the handbrake on. And one second, let me just
Lucknow.
put. No, Birmingham, 2019.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
the
Yeah,
league
okay.
yeah,
stage game. Yeah.
right. Where they were chasing a big target, but you knew that they were kind of because they were like, we don't know if one of us gets out, what happens next,
And we,
right?
we saw what happened
We
next.
saw what happened next, right? When, yeah, Dhoni
Yeah,
and
there's a big
Jadhav
difference
were in.
in having Kedar Jadhav and and a very young Rishabh Pant at 4 and 5 as opposed to
And
Shreyas
then,
No,
Iyer
there was
and
no
KL
Rishabh
Rahul.
then at that time. There was Kedar Jadhav
oh,
and
no, no.
MS Dhoni.
Rishabh played
No,
that
Rishabh
game, I
was
think.
in
I
by
think
that game. He had come in as an
there was a
injury
cameo.
replacement.
There was
Yeah.
a cameo, and briefly, when him and Hardik were batting, it looked like okay, there could be a chance. Once they got out, they
Hmm.
were like, okay, we're not even going to go for it.
We went into the
So
infamous net run rate territory after that.
yeah. So yeah, to come back to my point, which is that yeah, with the personnel they had, they also at least at that stage, maybe not two years down the line, at that stage they kind of had to play that way. It was like Shikhar Dhawan, Rohit Sharma, Kohli.
Even
You hope
even
at least
Shikhar
one of
got
them.
injured. Even Shikhar got injured,
He
so
did.
they were offset. So
Yeah,
unfortunately, Rahul, who was in the middle order, had to jump
had
onto
to.
the opening. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So yeah. So it was, we hope one of our top three at least gets a big 100, and then the rest will kind of, do what they can do. So it was also helped by having that personnel that, okay, they could be like, okay, now we think we can play this way and not risk going nowhere with it. Also,
Hmm.
like I said, they failed with that previous way. So then they're like, okay, no, we have to change.
Yeah. And I think that
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
2021 T20 World Cup also was probably a pivotal turning point because until then, at least India always had this, their narrative
You.
was we've come so close. Our methods are
Mm.
working.
Yeah.
It's 1 hour of cricket that we've lost
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
tournament
yeah.
in. But the 2021 T20 World Cup was when it was very clear that these methods are just not working. There was no excuse then. There was no
You
saying
know
we
what?
got close. Yeah.
You know what? If India had
They,
won those tosses, India would have still
they,
made the semi-final in that 2021.
Perhaps, but yeah, but they didn't, and then they couldn't win those games. And
Yeah.
it was very
So
that
that
2021 World Cup
strategy,
made it
yeah,
very clear that something needs to drastically change in the way India are playing T20 cricket. So I think
that
that's when things
strategy
change.
was very, if things go our way, we will win 8 times out of 10. It was, it did not have it did not, ensure against a bad day,
Yeah.
whereas this
yeah.
strategy could.
And
And to
also,
be fair, the next T20 World Cup, India didn't really make that big a change. They had changed in the interim. Between those two World Cups, they had started playing more aggressively, but then 2022, they went back a little bit into their shells, playing maiden overs at the top. Virat Kohli, although he scored a lot of runs in that World Cup, was not quite batting in the way that, say, he does now in T20 cricket. And so I think those two T20 World Cups really kind of showed India that we've got to make a significant change here. It can't be just us saying up it a little bit. It has to be almost a sea change in the way we bat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing which Monga kind of brought up also was that in 2021, right? The first match they lost to Pakistan, and then when they went into the New Zealand game, they like, okay, we're bringing in Ishan Kishan. We're going to open with Ishan Kishan and KL, and both Rohit and Kohli are going to bat in the middle. It was something they had never tried before. They're trying in the middle of a World Cup. And these kinds of things, like you said, in 2019, that happened as well, right? Uh, where Dinesh Karthik is batting number 4 in a semi-final, and he had never done any of this in the run-up to the tournament. So that stopped under Rohit and Dravid, except for just one instance of it, which is the World Cup final where they opened the bowling with Shami instead of Siraj. Which again, you could kind of see the logic of it, but it's the only time they went away from something they'd been like doing and believing in.
The only thing I had with them is Suryakumar Yadav playing a test match.
Hmm.
We'll get to Rohit's test captaincy, which of course didn't have as fantastic results as in the other formats. It should also be mentioned that I think under him and Dravid again is when this commitment to India batting till number 8 started. 2024 T20 World Cup is when they decided that no, we will have the two all-rounders, as you mentioned, Jadeja and Akshar. Of course, conditions allowed for both of them to play, but it was still, I mean,
Again,
there were a lot of people naming
again,
11s before that World Cup that didn't include them. Yeah.
sorry, again, a small thing here was the selectors were not very sure of having two left-arm spinners in the side. And Rohit said, I will make it work. Leave it to me. I it so that kind of he actually it is not something that you would ideally do in a side, but he made it work. So that's also a prop to his captaincy. This is one small anecdotal thing where the selectors were not very keen on having both of them, but he said, "I will make them work." And he was very big on Akshar being the disruptor in the middle overs when
Hmm.
the spinners are on.
Which is arguably what won India the final, sending
Yeah,
Akshar
yeah,
off the
yeah,
order.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
So
he played a
those were
big role in the
some.
Champions Trophy as well
yeah.
with the bat. I think
In
they
that
broke
nervy
down those
little
roles.
period.
Yeah, they broke down those roles really well, which is like Akshar, you are our spin disruptor, even in ODIs, and we'll send you up the order quite often. Your bowling is kind of secondary. For Jadeja, it became almost a classical sort of left arm spinner. His ODI bowling just went to another level in that period, and his batting became a bit of a bonus. He hardly ever batted in. Uh, just his presence was enough for the others to bat in a different way, in a more aggressive way, but he wasn't really required to bat in most matches. So their roles were like split in a very nice and very well defined way.
Also, in the 2022 World Cup, they might have trialed it in 2022 itself, but India's wrist spinner, India's premium spinner, wicket-taking spinner was a leg spinner. So if
Yeah.
Akshar had come in and if you were stuck with a left-hand batter, you wouldn't have had anyone. That's why Ashwin was picked in 2022 World Cup. It was not any sentimental pick or experience or whatever. It was just this kind of
Yeah.
combination. If Kuldeep had played the 2022 World Cup, you would have seen Akshar and Jadeja playing together in the 2022 World Cup itself. So
I
this is the
think
kind
Yeah.
of
20.
this is the kind
Yeah.
of granular planning that India were doing and under Rohit and Dravid.
And I think Ashwin started working on his six hitting game just a couple of years too late. In 2022, he was still a great lever of the cricket ball, as he showed in that game against Pakistan. But maybe not quite the same six hitting force which prevented India batting deep. Let me make some mild criticisms here of Rohit's captaincy. Otherwise, this is just becoming a Rohit Sharma love fest. Did you ever feel in white ball cricket he was a little formulaic with the way he used bowlers, especially in terms of not in games that were slipping away from India, not sometimes making that aggressive move to bring back a Bumrah or one of your aggressive wicket-taking options? I think the one example I have of this is probably the one game that got away from him, which was the 2023 World Cup final. Hate to remind Indian fans of that, but I mean, there were a couple of things that were questionable about that game, right? One, which I guess hasn't ever been confirmed, but India asking for a pitch that was slow and tacky kind of maybe worked against them a little bit in the end. But also, if you look at what Rohit did defending that, in the end, what was not a big enough total, But he starts off, and they do get Australia, what was it, 35 for 3 or 40 for 3. They do have them in trouble. Then he goes to the spinners, which again he had to because the pitch was expected to take spin. But he only brought Bumrah, who was his main wicket-taking threat, back, I think, in the 28th over of that game, when Travis Head and Manas Labuschagne were already in. There was less than 100 to get. And Bumrah was only given 2 overs in which he almost got Labuschagne out. It was umpire's call on review for an LBW, which would have actually been out had the umpire given it out. And then he took Bumrah back off. He didn't really use Shami, who had been one of his main wicket takers in the tournament. I think Shami had still 3 overs left at the end of the game. Bumrah wasn't even bowled out. Of course, was this just one match where maybe there was just too much pressure and things got away from India? But there are also a few other examples I can point to in previous ODIs India lost, where Rohit was perhaps a little formulaic in holding back his seamers for the death in games where clearly you needed wickets through the middle. Is that a fair criticism, or was it just, or am I just nitpicking?
I think he was trying to get in overs of spin before dew would like become really, really heavy. Uh, he's won tight chases, tight defenses in the IPL finals, being slightly he has done that 2 or 3 times. I think he's a master defender in T20 cricket of small totals. So I don't know. I mean, for me, to me, that match was lost with the bat or a day before the match when the pitch was prepared. And I always felt I had a uncomfortable feeling in that tournament that with the pitches. Because you see, if you look at the Excel sheet that ICC puts up with the ratings on the pitches, some of the venues would be rated excellent, very good, and those would be non-India matches, and then India would turn up and the pitch would be average. It was a trend. It was not like this square is only producing these kind of slow pitches. Uh, so I like there's no way for me to tell 100% sure, but India might have had a bit of influence on these pitches, which they really did not need to. They had a much stronger ODI attack for a normal Indian flat pitch to beat Australia on. So I think they kind of played into Australia's hands. And I was also surprised that India wanted to bat first on the final. I think eventually Australia won the toss and inserted India, but had India won the toss, they were looking to bat first, which is surprising because Ahmedabad's record in that World Cup had been easy chases.
I
Batting
just
had like
yeah.
become significantly easier in the evenings. Now, the only difference was that I think it had been about 2 or 3 weeks since the last match in Ahmedabad. So I don't know what they saw in the conditions. But yeah, this was one my small nitpick was more kind of trying to control the conditions also rather than on field. On field, he was. I mean, the same things that Dustin you pointed out might have worked for him in the past in other smaller defenses.
Yeah, and just a couple of points that you made. One is, I think he said that India would have batted, which in a World Cup final, you've lost the toss. Ravi Shastri is asking you, okay, what would you have done? It's sometimes you don't say what you. So I don't know whether India actually wanted to bat or he just said it. That's one thing. The second thing is, it's a really good point you made about the pitches, the trend of the pitches in that World Cup. It also mirrored the trend of India's home test pitches under Rohit and Rahul Dravid. I think both of them underestimated how good India were to in a sense where
But in
they
Test cricket, didn't sorry, there was a call. In Test cricket,
yeah.
didn't India play some of the Test matches, some of the best pitches also under Rahul Dravid and Rohit, like the England series? All five
So
tests were good
that was
pitch.
yeah, the England series was the one exception. But
Hmm.
in general, you had in a lot of press conferences, Dravid saying, look, boss, like, WTC is there. If there's a draw,
Yeah.
we only get like,
I think that
so
Kanpur draw where Ajaz Patel hung on,
that's the one. That's the one. Yeah, yeah. Ejaz Patel and Rachin Ravindra on debut.
that's what burnt him. And that
Yeah, yeah,
was
yeah.
Dravid's first test as coach, I think. And after that,
Yes.
he kind of.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So then he was like, no, I can't afford to have drawish pitches. So they went a little
Hmm.
too far in that, at least in that Australia series.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think that tendency was there in that ODI World Cup as well, where they didn't have to be so worried about the pitches, and that worry kind of consumed them to the extent that it worked against them in the biggest match. So yeah, and on coming to your question, Dustin, on the on-field, like Monga says, sometimes these things, when they work, they don't look like bad decisions. And every captain has those days when they don't work and it looks really bad. Uh, the ones you mentioned, yeah, I didn't even remember like when Bumrah came back, when how many overs Shami had left and all that. Maybe my part of my brain has blanked all of that out. But yeah, I did feel like, having played the same attack through the tournament, more or less, uh, and one of the important components being Mohammad Siraj, to not use him with a new ball, okay, that's fair enough. Shami was in red hot form against left-hand batters, especially. You had Travis Head, who's the danger guy. It's fair enough. You switch that, but it took. I think it took India a really long time to bring Siraj on at all, and I think by that time the match was gone. So I think that's my only
Hmm.
real criticism of Rohit's tactics in that uh in when India were defending that total.
I think you made a good point, and I want to now segue to Rohit's Test captaincy, because you made a good point about the pitches that he played on in India. And of course, while Rohit had a fantastic record as a white ball captain, I think should mention that his red ball captaincy was underwhelming. I mean, the record at least, he's won 12 tests, lost 9,
Hmm.
the only Indian captain I think to be whitewashed at home in a series, lost 3-0 to New Zealand, and then of course the following Border Gavaskar Trophy. And so he did oversee what was a bit of a low point for Indian tests, at least if we're looking at the last 15 years or so. Was that just because the side was in transition, or do you think there was something about Rohit's captaincy that did not replicate itself in red ball cricket? Did not replicate the success that he had in white ball cricket and red ball cricket.
One of the things
The
was
Yeah.
he himself was. I don't think he has captained a whole series away from home because his fitness was not that great at that age. He was always missing 1 or 2 test matches in a series.
I mean, he captained the South Africa series, but that was 2 tests, so
Yeah,
not a
two
long
tests.
series. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So like and India, to be fair to Dravid and Rohit Sharma, at the start of their tenure as captain and coach, they had to reckon with a lot of injuries. Somebody or the other, like you have done those stories on video of the revolving door on the opening test match opening. India never had a regular opening pair. Bowlers kept getting injured, so India had to contend with a lot of injuries under Rohit Sharma and Rahul Dravid. That is one thing. The other thing was Rohit himself kind of lost his batting form because even on those pitches that he used to ask for, his own batting used to be a big difference. I mean, even before he became captain, you remember the Chennai test after India had fallen behind to England 1-0, and that second test was a square turner, and Rohit Sharma on day one played an innings that killed the test match completely. He scored 100 while England as a team was struggling to score hundreds. Um, and there were quite a few such tests where he would play some such gems on like square turners and completely kill the test match on day one, which kind of, I don't know. I mean, again, these are the things that we will never know. Did it kind of lead them to believe in batters who can kill the game in a session? They gave a debut, as we earlier mentioned, to Surya Kumar Yadav, which uh, did not make sense at all to me. Then those kind of things started happening. Then the pitches became more and more desperate with the pitches instead of trying to play the long game, especially I guess in the New Zealand series, which India lost 3-0. Which I know, I mean, we at that time we were like, okay, this streak had to come to an end someday. But if the more you look back at it, the more losing to a bowling attack of Mitchell Santner, Glenn Phillips, it kind of the more it and Ejaz Patel, yeah, the more incredible it sounds to bring them into the game so much. Uh, Especially, I mean, if you fall behind in the series, you would want to trust your spinners. I think at a point he stopped trusting his spinners to deliver on a good track.
with the Test captaincy, that New Zealand series, I feel like, all the tosses and the toss decision in Bangalore and all of that, it kind of made, and of course it's 3-0, but that 3-0 could have been anything. Like it could have been 2-1 in either team's favor. It could have been anything. It was one of those weird series, and I think because it's 3-0, it looks like a much more one-sided, far more one-sided series than it actually was. Uh, yeah, and uh, I don't, I don't know. Like I don't think he captained enough in Test matches to kind of for us to say this was Rohit Sharma, the Test captain, in a way that Rohit, like Virat
Hmm.
Kohli, he had a long tenure. He kind of established certain patterns across it. He grew and he learned and he changed his ways of captaincy also in that period. There were things
Hmm.
that he did that pushed the
Hmm.
needle for Indian cricket. I don't think Rohit Sharma captained for long enough to do any of those things, and he happened to captain at a time where a transition was happening. So,
And
I
he
mean, if
himself didn't. He himself played only half the games that were available in that period.
that's right, that's
Yeah.
right. And yeah, so and when you think about it now, his captaincy tenure basically ended with like him, Ashwin and Kohli retiring. So
Hmm.
I think he happened to captain at a very tricky time.
Yeah, here's where I do think though that like as much as we praise Rohit as white ball captain, I actually feel at times Virat Kohli is not given enough credit for his period of Test captaincy of India. It's often put down to just, oh, he had this great side around him. He did build that side. I do think that Rohit was a much more conservative Test captain. If you look at selection, there was this focus on batting till number 8. Even if you look back to the tour of South Africa, where there was this insistence on playing Shardul at number 8
Was there
in the
though?
home series against.
No, no, no. But the Shardul thing began under like
It did
Kohli.
become an it did,
uh,
but at least Kohli tried in some tests to play 4 out and out bowlers, which I don't think Rohit did at all. Kohli went back to that after
Kohli
at least losing tests.
and also no, I think you've got that wrong because I can think of two pivotal instances where India lose the first test in South Africa under Rohit and Dravid, and then they leave out Shardul Thakur and they play 4 out-and-out fast bowlers. They bring in Mukesh
Prasid.
Kumar, I think, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
they do.
Mukesh,
They did in the second test. Yeah,
Prasid. Yeah, yeah, they bring in Prasid and yeah, so it's Mukesh. That game, they compromise on their batting. They lose 6-4-0 in that game. 6-4-0 was it or 6? Uh, Whatever it was, and but they win that game in Cape Town. And then in the England series, second test match, Ravindra Jadeja is out. India have lost the first test match. Jadeja made a 80 or 90 odd in that game, if I'm not wrong. But they replaced him with a bowler, not a batter. They bring in Kuldeep Yadav for that test. And then in the next test, when Jadeja comes back, they don't leave out Kuldeep, they leave out Akshar Patel. So uh, that series and that South Africa tour I mentioned kind of showed that Dravid and Rohit were like, no, we need like out and out bowlers. If that also comes with batting, yeah, they were like any team, you do need some amount of batting at number 8, ideally, but they were prepared to not have it if the only way to have a proper bowler was to have a proper bowler who couldn't bat.
yeah. I
Which
guess it was
Gautam
still a
Gambhir,
case of
Dravid.
which has changed under Gautam Gambhir.
yeah, yeah. But
And
it was still under
Dravid was
Rohit's
the
captaincy. Yeah,
Dravid was
it's
OG
Dravid
20 wickets,
was the
20
mover,
wickets chaser. Because no, even as a
even in
captain,
his
he was a
captaincy.
yeah.
Exactly.
Munaf Patel and Piyush Chawla's debut test. India dropped
Yeah.
Lakshman.
Yeah.
So if Dravid had the kind of freedom that Kohli had to I think Vinod Rai he might have played an undesirable part in what the BCCI has become today, but he played a very, very desirable role in what Kohli and Shastri were able to accomplish in that period on the field, where there was not undue games pressure kind of put by administrators was not there, and Kohli could kind of get into a period where he could experiment and fail and then develop his own style. If Dravid had that kind of backing, he would have survived that loss to England at Wankhede, where he asked them to bat first, and India could not chase a total in the fourth innings.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was
Yeah.
2006. So
2006.
Yeah, but Dravid was the original guy to have this idea where he was willing to sacrifice batting for 20 wickets, which kind of showed in his coaching tenure also.
Yeah.
I think maybe I'm thinking more of the back end of Rohit's
Yeah,
captaincy career, where he did cut a bit of a frustrated figure on the field. The one thing that I know it's a bit of an intangible, but I do give Kohli credit for was some of the times India had to defend low totals both at home or away, where he had this intensity. And I know maybe it's overstated in some ways because we keep watching video packages of him saying 60 minutes of hell or whatever it is, 60 overs of hell. But I do think some of that helped with him getting up the crowd. I mean, KK's just watched a test where I think he was among a few dozen people to watch a test in India. But there were times during Kohli's tenure where there was enough of a crowd for Kohli to get them up. And maybe it was just towards the end of Rohit's career where his own batting form and the fact that things just weren't going well for India meant that he cut a little bit more of a sort of fall-on figure on the field, particularly during that last Border Gavaskar tour where I think that mentally maybe he just was so disappointed in his own batting that he didn't seem to then be able to get the rest of the team up, even in moments where India had openings during that series.
I think he had the kind of you are a leadership team and you select a team in consultation. When he was with Dravid, they were both on the same page and it was easier to work. He had kind of towards the end, he was kind of giving up on fighting. He was picking his battles, and those he was not very keen to fight some battles with Gautam Gambhir. Well, that's a feeling I got, especially in terms of selection, where India became very conservative with selections under Gambhir.
Yeah, I mean the one selection which I'm
And he
still
didn't have the
confused
runs.
about.
He
Sorry.
didn't have
Yeah.
the runs to be able
Yeah.
to kind of say I want this. So
Yeah.
th-
I mean, uh, like his test captaincy ended with him sitting out a test match when he was fit.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, in that situation, and he had missed the first test also. So it was a very unsettled kind of end to his test captaincy with a new coach with whom he may or may not have seen eye to eye when his own batting form had, deserted him. Yeah, I I think I think Rohit's captaincy tenure and the fact of working with two different coaches and how those two chapters of the tenure went kind of show the limitations of a captain also in a sense. I think coaches right now, especially in the game, play a probably a much bigger role than captains in like deciding the shape that a team takes. And
Yeah.
it's just the
But
on-field sort of decisions that, captains make.
yeah. Well, anyway,
Yeah.
we've talked about the end of his test captaincy, which ended a little bit ignominiously, but the end of his ODI captaincy at least was one of jubilation where he won the Champions Trophy. And I want to just quickly now talk about what Rohit's future is as a batter, because he's been named in the squad, of course, to go to Australia and play 3 ODIs. Is this a question now of just because he's still playing that role, as Sid said, at the top of the order, where he's giving you a fast start in the power play? Do you just play him and see if he can make it to the 2027 World Cup, or is there a fixed number of games that you're looking to give Rohit at this point? What do you think India will do with Rohit, considering that he'll be 40 by the next ODI World Cup?
yeah, runs and fitness, you have to be vigilant consistently. Both, I mean, both is form and fitness. I don't know what the because yesterday there was a very curious quote by Ajit Agekar saying that neither Rohit nor Virat is committal about 2027 World Cup. So those conversations have not been had. Those plans have not yet been formulated. Who knows? This could be a farewell series given to one or two of them. You never know. But if no such thing has been planned, you have to be consistently vigilant with, especially with Rohit, his fitness, and it gets more and more difficult as because at the top of the show, Karthik mentioned how few one days are played, and these guys are not playing Vijay Hazare. They did not put themselves up for Australia. I don't know how it works. I mean, the selectors also could have said you don't need selectors don't need their permission. They could have picked them up for the A games. So if they need to, I mean, I think Rohit has to play domestic cricket if he's only going to play ODI cricket, and there's about 18 to 20 matches between now and the World Cup. That might not be enough for him to stake his claim for the World Cup in South Africa, which in one of our earlier shows I had mentioned was in early 2027, which one of our viewers corrected. It's in the second half of 2027, so it makes it even more difficult for Rohit.
Yeah, KK, of course, you've just done a piece on what Gill needs to do now as ODI captain. Do you see any things that he needs to tweak in this team or questions that he needs answering, considering that the next World Cup will be in very different conditions to the Champions Trophy where India won? Or is it more just continue in the same vein of what Rohit had been doing as captain?
Yeah, I think for now, continue in the same vein. See what Rohit and Kohli do right now, and uh, I was very like one thing I think that kind of defined Rohit also for me. That I was really like blown by was after that tour of Australia. I thought that's it. How is he going to like, because his batting looked like it had kind of fallen to pieces. It's not just that he was making low scores, he just didn't look like the Rohit Sharma we know, right? And then he plays that ODI series against England at home and he smashes this century, and you're like, wow, he's still got it, right? So, and then of course, in the Champions Trophy, plays the same way, doesn't score a lot of runs until the final, and then in the final, he kind of wins India the game in his way. So I'm not gonna I can't write off either him or Kohli, but also yeah, I think they'll have to like figure out how to like in South African conditions, right? A combination that will work there. So I think the 2023 World Cup, one thing that really like hurt India very, very badly. The one thing was Hardik Pandya getting injured. That completely messed up their balance, and then suddenly they didn't have anyone at 8 who could bat. And they were like, okay, we can't play Shardul Thakur at 8 because we don't have that other bowler to cushion for his bad days. So they were like, okay, fine, we'll just play 4 out and out bowlers there. Um, so in South African conditions where they can't keep picking spin bowling all-rounders to make up that combination and give them both depth in batting and bowling, they'll have to figure out who's the guy, who are the guys, because Hardik Pandya, you don't know. He's in his 30s as well now, I think 31 or something, if I'm not wrong. And his injury record is well known. He's not going to Australia now either. So they picked Nitish Kumar Reddy. So they have to figure out, okay, is Nitish Kumar Reddy the guy? How do they make sure that he's bowling enough overs wherever he plays to keep getting better, keep learning new tricks, new skills, so that he can be that fifth, that third or fourth seaming option, depending on how many spinners play. Because they will need that guy. They will need Hardik Pandya ideally, or they will need somebody like that in all their matches. If they want, the ideal combination to be able to like win that World Cup. So that I think is one major challenge, like balancing the team for South African conditions. And yeah, also managing, apart from these two, there's also Ravindra Jadeja, who, he's not been picked for this ODI series in Australia. And therefore, like, can Akshar Patel play that role with the ball as well that Jadeja was doing? Because Akshar, uh, in the Champions Trophy and in ODIs generally, it's been like a batting first role, right? So whether he can, when there's a team with a lot of left-handers, how's his bowling gonna come up and stuff? So these are little challenges that India have to keep managing. And yeah, there's no reason why they can't do it. And if they look at other teams and the problems other teams are facing, this is nothing.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean they've got
yeah.
in some ways a problem of plenty. I mean, one of the problems might actually be how to fit in some of these new batters who are coming up. Priyansh Arya has just smashed 100 for India. Tilak Verma, how
Mm,
long can you keep him out of an ODI team? So maybe more good problems
yeah.
for India than difficult ones going ahead to the next World Cup.
Yeah, the big problem that makes these smaller problems seem bigger is the fact that where are they going to have the time to try out these people? And, how are they going to manage? Okay, if because Rohit and Kohli are only playing ODIs, so if you're picking them in an ODI squad, you probably think they have to play all the matches in a series. Uh, so then where are you going to try the people who are your next in line for those two roles? So that's one thing they have to figure out. I don't know how they're going to do it, but they'll need to do it.
Yeah, and I'm sure that they'll manage to squeeze in some ODI series somewhere against Sri Lanka and West Indies. And when
Yeah.
they do, we shall also cover it on Rock and Roll It, as of course we do. We're hoping to bring this podcast to you every week. I think we've now managed a record which is we've pretty much come to the end of this one within an hour. So our editor and listeners will be very happy with us. So unless you guys have anything more to add, I think we'll wrap this one up and we'll be back very quickly. Who knows who else is going to be replaced as captain, who's going to retire. There's always going to be something to talk about. We haven't even got to the test match. Hopefully, we'll cover something in the India-West Indies test. There wasn't much to cover. It was only 3 days of cricket. So we decided to do this topic instead. But maybe after the next test, we'll have something on that. So stay tuned for the next episode of Rock and Roll.
TV umpire to director, we have a review. Can you rock and roll it for me, please?